All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Strategic Priorities, Communication, and Intergovernmental Cooperation Committee meeting for Thursday, June 26th, 2025 at City Hall Chambers. We will call the meeting to order. Is there any declarations of conflict of interest? Hearing none. Do I have an approval of the agenda? Mayor Brown, second by Deputy Minister Yankoff. Approval of the previous draft minutes from May 26th, 2025. Moved by Deputy Mayor Yankoff, second by Mayor Brown. Any business arising from those minutes? Hearing none. Okay, we'll move into, we have a number of reports and discussion items for this afternoon. So our first one is under section 6A, Network Modernization RFQ. And I assume that would be Rory, you speak to that? Go ahead.
Sure. So this is just an RFQ that was put out for some network switches. All the information is there in the report, but essentially it was advertised, closed on June 6th. Budget for the project was $40,000. The bid price was $18,546.64, but we're also looking to purchase an additional 4 switches, which would still be under budget for a total of $27,078.84.
Any questions on network switches? Didn't think so. Our fearless leader is coming back here to his seat, and we'll ask him if he has any questions. Do you have any questions on the network switches RFQs? None at all? Okay, so do I. Okay, thank you. So do you have a motion to move this forward to council, the next council meeting?
I'll do that.
Second, thank you. Okay, moving on up here, I will go to our next report, which is also with Rory under computers RFQ.
Similar to the network switches, we're just looking for a combination of laptops, desktops, and tablets. We separated this into 2 evaluations because we wanted to evaluate the HP devices separate from the Dell devices. The total price was $85,908.03. This tender was advertised and closed on June 6th, and the budget for the project is $120,000. If there's any questions on it, I can go into more detail.
So Rory, just a quick question, just regarding is this part of like a refresh program that you have with the city? Is this for the assets and like every, 3 to 4 year lifespan?
Yeah, that's correct. We do a 5-year warranty and a 5-year refresh on all the devices.
Okay. Okay. Seems pretty straightforward. It's an operational budget.
Yep. Moved.
Moved by Councilor, second by Deputy Mayor. Okay, moving on to the next report. Again, with Rory. Public Works and Network Cabling RFQ.
Sure, and this is for the wiring in the building at 12 McAleer Drive, the Public Works building. Just looking to upgrade this to Category 6 cabling. It's currently Cat 5, which only allows a relatively slow speed in today's world. The tender was publicly advertised, closed on June 5th. Budget for the project is $100,000, and the total estimated cost was $54,100. If there's any questions, I can go into more detail.
Yeah, question?
So, Rory, we have the fiber network project's been going on since 2019. This is not something that we could use for this system or this connection?
So this one is just for the internal wiring. So yeah, we would not, we may interconnect into the fiber. That's part of that project you're speaking to, but it's not really related to this.
No, I know. I'm just looking the next 2 steps. So we're ready to tie into our fiber network as soon as it's up and operating.
Yes.
With the system in place or anywhere we put them, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
And just on that, I know it's a little on the off-ramp, but is our system still working between City Hall and the Planning Department with the fiber network?
Yes, that's correct. We haven't had any problems with that connection.
And the other one out in Milton Vale Park at the well field?
None that I'm aware of.
It's not working, or it is
No,
working?
no issues that I'm aware of, sorry.
Thank you.
So Rory, just to further expand on that, is this replacing the Cat5 with Cat6, that entire complex? So that will only help strengthen the communications as, we maybe move forward into those other avenues of the fiber optic. Any other questions? Do I have a motion to move that to council as well? Got by Mayor Brown, second by Deputy Mayor Yankoff, sorry, Deputy Minister.
Salary too.
There you go. Okay, thank you, Rory, appreciate that. We're going to move now on to the next report, which is programming of Boulder Park. So who would be taking that on? And I guess maybe before we start on that, Mike, I'm just going to get some context. I know I had kind of briefly asked the other day, are we bringing Boulder Park through this committee under what context?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the context for this report was previous direction from the CAO's office that advising that we would be dealing with this through this committee. The rationale being that it is really an intergovernmental issue.
That clarifies. I just wanted, that was a planning thing, so I was wondering how it was making its way through here, but makes sense. Thank you. So you can proceed.
The report is on page 10 of your package, again dealing with advising council on the future use, care, and control of Boulder Park. Recommendation is respectfully that committee recommends that council approve the mistletoe market booking request for the 2025 season. So just for background, following council's resolution to purchase a portion of the PID inclusive of Boulder Park to support the renovation of the Confederation Center of the Arts, staff have been exploring the logistics related to the site's future use and ongoing maintenance. And more recently, Discover Charlottetown has submitted a request to both the province and the city to use the site as part of its annual mistletoe market initiative. So there's two key restrictions on this property. One being the restrictive covenant in place, which basically requires that the property remain zoned as green space or parkland. So any requested designation change must receive written consent from the Executive Council of the Province of Prince Edward Island. And then additionally, this property falls within the Legislative Assembly precinct, and that ties into the Legislative Assembly Act, which gives the Speaker of the Legislative Assembly control and management of the precinct and inclusive of this property. So those two factors limit the city's ability to determine or approve uses for that site independently. So we've been discussing this with the provincial contact that deals with management of the site to better understand acceptable uses in the future. The province did advise that a more formal grounds use policy is under development, and that should be completed by this fall, which will define those acceptable uses within the precinct. Until it's finalized, any proposed use of Boulder Park other than as a park would be evaluated by the province on a case-by-case basis. And again, in consultation with the province regarding that specific request from Discover Charlottetown, it's been confirmed that the provincial approval has been granted for the market to proceed on the site for the 2025 season. However, we were also advised that any future approvals will depend on the forthcoming grounds use policy, which may preclude this type of event in future years. We were advised that the grounds use policy will likely limit any sort of economic activity within the precinct. So all that said, staff continue to collaborate with the province to establish a coordinated maintenance arrangement for the park and the surrounding area to make sure that we're providing maintenance as consistently as possible. And we'll be bringing further information once the grounds use policy is determined by the province. Happy to answer any questions at this time.
Okay, thank you for that, Mike. So just so I understand clearly, prior to our purchase of this land, most recently, back in March, I think it was, we would not have any dealings with this property in the way in which we are now as property owners to allow for the mistletoe, what do they call it, the mistletoe market? Is that essentially now because we are the property owners, so now we have to go through this process and allow that to meet the qualifications of the provincial and the legislative policies?
That's correct, Mr. Chair. So now that the city is the owner, we would typically be in a position where we would be the approving authority on any use of the property. However, because of the restrictive covenant and the Legislative Assembly Act and the restrictions around use, this is a bit of a special case.
And my second question is, so are we now limited, are you suggesting that we may be limited use of this property going forward?
The
With some of
use
these
of the property is
changes that-
limited to, well, the land use for the property is limited to parkland or green space under the restrictive covenant. If there was a proposal to change that, it would require approval from the province. And then under the Legislative Assembly Act, any, I guess, more active use of the site would be subject to approval by the speaker effectively.
So the reason I ask, we're not discovering something now after the purchase of this property that is limiting us from using it in any future uses. That's not what you're suggesting here today?
I can't speak to that. I wasn't involved in the original discussions of the land transfer, but we have been advised that, well, the restrictive covenant is in place and that I guess the new piece of information for myself in particular is the legislative requirement under the Legislative Assembly Act limiting use, giving control to the speaker.
Okay, that seems like that might be, sounds to me like new information that we may not have understood at the time of purchase.
I
I don't know. Again, if it's not limiting us to a degree of, rendering the property, not sustainable for us other than maintenance of it and, just being a Boulder Park, but allowing us to have future events, future things, because I think that is some of the things that I personally understood if, making that investment would allow us to have more care and control over that property, would allow us to do, city things on there and allow us to have events and things of that nature. But if you're saying now that there may be some restricted covenants around that allows us to do that, or through the Legislative Assembly Act that even further limits that, that's, but maybe I'm misinterpreting. I'm seeing some, CAO might want to.
Just to clarify, I'm not saying that there wouldn't be any uses permitted on the site. It's just that the speaker has the authority to determine uses on the site. So if there's if there's a major departure proposed from what is currently happening on the site or what has historically happened on the site, they want to have a say in whether or not that is allowed to occur.
I'll go here until I see you.
Thank you. So a couple of things. Wondering why there's even a recommendation to go to council to approve this permitted use for this one-time use when it's already been approved by the province, and the restrictive covenants don't give us any say on approval of the land anyways. So I have that. But I also feel like we bought a bit of a boondoggle. I don't feel we had any of these conversations when we purchased this property. I'm not saying that I still wouldn't have supported it, but I think I think that, it's really great that we have this historic piece of property under city ownership, but it's kind of not really city ownership considering it's got restrictive covenants that I don't recall knowing about, and that the Speaker of the House is the person who makes the final say anyhow. Those are just my thoughts, but I guess my main question would be, why is this here today for a staff recommendation to send this to council for approving it when it's already been approved and the announcement has already been out in the news to everybody. It's already approved. Anyways, that's my question.
Through the chair, I can answer that question. The reason why it's here today is because the request was both to the province and the city to provide an approval for this event to occur. So that's why we're here today. You know, the applicant, in this case, Discover Charlottetown, requested approval from the province, knowing that that restriction was in place. And like we have with other events in public, within public properties, we're bringing this forward again through council to get council's approval before we give that to the applicant.
Could I just do a quick follow-up question? Okay, thank you, Mike, for that explanation, and that explanation makes sense to me. But let's just say, for the heck of it, we turn it down, and then council turns it down. The event's still happening because it's already been approved. So what would happen if we all said, nah, we're not doing that?
Through
Still
the
gonna
chair.
happen.
Through the chair, if council did not want to approve this from happening, ultimately it's our property. So we could indicate that, you know, we do not, the city corporation does not approve that use.
That is being discussed.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Down here. Thank you, Chair. Just on the awareness of these covenants, they were in the initial agreement signed back in April. If you go to page 17 in your package, it does outline that there was covenants associated to the land purchase. But just speaking from another lens, in my previous role, these apply to policing services too, in a certain way in that legislative jurisdiction. They do have a set of rules that apply, and try to work with them. But a lot of times, the covenants do exist, or first right of refusal on policing or security services or response to things. But the covenants were mentioned in the initial agreement.
Thank you, Theo. And I guess for me, I don't feel the covenants as much as concern, as I'm sure there would be restrictions on that, but it seems to be a little bit more at another level of with the Legislative Assembly Act that also can supersede what appears to happen on there. So if I understood correctly, Discover Charlottetown has already gone to the province seeking approval for this. They didn't even have to come to the city of Charlottetown to seek approval of it, correct? They just they put application into the province. Is that how I
Thank you for
heard
the
said
question,
that there?
Mr. Chair. Just to clarify, so now that the property is owned by the city, there's effectively two approvals that would be required for use of the property. One would be the city as the owner, and then if it's a significant departure from what is occurring on the site today and historically, an approval would be required through the speaker.
So did we see an application from Discover Charlottetown to the city for the mistletoe market, or did they go directly to the province for that? So I thought I heard you say they went directly to the province.
So there was communication sent to both the province and the city requesting approval to use the site for the mistletoe market.
Okay. Okay. So just back to the CAO, I mean, I know that, it's our responsibility to read these documents and, back when we passed that and the agreement and the covenants is, but I think when you kind of get it more spelled out like it is here today, it becomes a little bit more highlighted than the fine print. Again, we may have had that, I don't recall this being as part of the open discussion and that transaction. Not to say it wasn't in the documentation here and in the agreement, it just seems to be a little bit more highlighted here, hence why I think it's raising a little bit more
So, Mr. Chair,
concern here, but thank you.
I signed it on behalf of,
You what?
I signed it on behalf of Mayor and Council, right? And I was with the understanding there would be covenants attached to this piece of property. Just remember, Victoria Park is covered by the Victoria Park Act. there are covenants there that we have to respect.
Yeah.
We just can't go and charge a fee for anyone to go in and use that park. Plus, we have a Victoria Park bylaw.
But do we manage that? Do we manage that act,
The act is the act from 1873.
we can make change that if we wish to.
We can make changes under the Victoria Park bylaw.
But in this case, the Legislative Assembly Act is not something that we could change.
Again, I think that what happened here is that one organization went to two bodies, the province and the city. I think, well, hindsight's 20/20. That should have came right to us first. And then we would have had those discussions with the province. Now this has opened up something that was no cause of ours. It was the applicant that put us in this position. But in terms of that piece of property, that is Queen Square. That is one of the 5 squares. And that square is where the Legislative Assembly is, Confederation Center, and also the Coles Building. And now we're part owner of that property. So there will be covenants. But I think what happened here is that the applicant should have came to us first. It should have went through economic development, tourism, and festival events. Why someone would say, okay, no, I'm going to supersede what's up here at the corner of Kent and Queen Streets. I'm going to just go on 2 fronts. No, that's not how it works. This has put us in a position, and I think a bargaining position that may affect how we may want to negotiate on what we want to do with that property. That's what I find a little bit disheartening, that we, as a city corporation, that'd be similar to the baseball team that is going to be, the seniors baseball team that's going to be going out to the Victoria Park, would go to the MLA to say, what about, can we use it for this? I know that still falls under the province, and come to the city of Charlottetown. I just feel that this has affected our negotiating position by this applicant going in this direction. And I don't think we can write it now. We have to deal with this as is. But Michael, who's the provincial contact? Is it out of the Speaker's office? Is it Joe Jeffrey?
Through the chair, that's correct. If I could,
So it is the Speaker.
that's correct.
So Joe Jeffrey is the provincial contact for this property, and he will be negotiating with the city on what the terms of use will be.
So if I could just clarify on a couple points. So I'm not sure what negotiations we're speaking about at this point, but as I advised in the report, what we've been advised is that they are working on a grounds use policy. So that grounds use policy will outline what the parameters of use are for that entire precinct, of which Boulder Part is part of it. Secondly, I would maybe again just offer that I don't think that there was any effort to try and get an approval from the province prior to coming to the city. An effort was made to try and get the necessary approvals in place so that this event could go forward, knowing that this property transfer was occurring at the same time. So there's been some moving parts through all of this, and I think everyone has just tried to make their best effort in trying to work through it all. But at the end of the day, I guess this only impacts the city if we do not intend to use the property for a park space, which, based on our internal discussions, that would be our intent unless council wishes otherwise.
Mr. Chair, Michael, the space is zoned what? What's the space up there zoned as? Institutional, commercial, open space, parkland? I believe it's open space. Correct?
So under the covenant, it's required to be zoned park or green space.
But what
and
is the
remain
current
as
zoning?
Such.
Do we know what the current zoning is? I understand it's open space.
I believe so. I couldn't tell you offhand without
So
checking
for
the
us to
map.
change that, we would have to go to a public meeting. And imagine going to a public meeting to change the zoning for Queen Square, Boulder Park. That's not going to happen. And the other thing too, Michael, again, the applicant went on 2 fronts. However it happened, that's not the point here. The point here is we have a body called the Department of Tourism, well, Economic Development, Tourism, Festival Events. That's where it should have went first, and that discussion could have taken place here. That's our property. That's our lead. That's our responsibility. That's not someone else to say, well, let's see what we can do here. No, there's processes, there's procedures. This procedure took its own course. And this, again, no blame on the department, no blame on the directors, Mr. Chair. This is just something, this is how business happens sometimes. I feel that if Joe Jeffrey, the Speaker of the House, is setting up uses for this, this property, we should be at the table. We should be there saying, okay, we know it's green space, we know it's open space, how can we make it work for all of us? And I understand that this is the north lawn, the south lawn is where we have a memorial for the injured workers, which I found out just lately, we're responsible to maintain it on an agreement that was signed back in 2005. So there's, you learn as you go along in this job, Mr. Chair. So I think that we yourself or this committee has to sit down with staff to say, okay, Joe Jeffrey or Office of the Speaker of the House, okay, let's look at an arrangement here that will work for all of us. But listen, it is not going to be rezoned from open space to commercial institute. It's going to stay open space. We can't do anything about that. And I think, Michael, if I'm wrong, is there something in this agreement that the boulders have to stay there because they represent these came from all different, every province and territory in the country. I think they have to stay. And, Mr. Chair, I drove up by the Province House today. The work that they're doing now on the grounds of the Provincial Legislative Assembly is right on Boulder Park. So were we contacted that this was going to happen? Like, it's my understanding, we bought the property. It's our property. And if you look at the construction fence, it's on Boulder Park. So were we told that, we're going to be doing some work here? Like, guys, we have to control the destiny of where we're going with this property. And it's a valuable, valuable piece of real estate, but it's definitely, and I'll reiterate this, it will stay open space, it will stay as a parkland, and it will be a very important part of one of our 5 squares, which is the Queen Square.
So if, through the chair, I'll just answer the question about the boulders. On page 17 of your package in the restrictive covenants, there is a statement about the fact that the boulders shall remain on the property of the vendor. I'm not sure if there's any other question in your comments there that I can respond to.
Yeah, there is. The work that's going on at the north lawn, or the north, I'm going to call it the north lawn of the Province House. The construction fence is right into Boulder Park. So I just want to know, were we contacted that this was taking place? Because, again, we're now with 3 parties here: federal government, provincial government, and the municipal government. So we all have to be working together.
So I think the CAO was looking to address that question when you brought it up the first time.
Thank you, Chair, and certainly we'll reach out to the parties involved there to make sure we're informed and see where they are in their decision making and forming their policies and look for opportunities for input.
Okay, so just to wrap up then, so I guess I just want to go back to a comment that was just made. Although we did purchase this land and we do have, it's certainly zoned a specific way, it does on the surface kind of feel like we don't have a lot of care and control over what happens on there. I think that's what kind of sparked this debate that we're having, is just through the some of the things that came to light here, whether it be the covenants on it from a provincial perspective or from the Legislative Assembly and what they're drafting as a policy to say what can and can't be done on there. It kind of seems like we need to be a partner in that. If we're not, we should be, and if we're not going to be invited to that table, then it does raise more concern as to what we can and can't do there from from any level. You know, what, we don't know what today will bring, we don't know what tomorrow will bring, what we want to do with that property. Okay. Oh, sorry, did you want to respond to my comment, or?
Yeah, I appreciate the comments, Mr. Chair. I would just note that the Director of Community Services and I both spoke with the gentleman from the Speaker's office about this issue, and the intent is for further conversation to happen as they're developing this policy, because we'd have an interest in using the property for council's wishes as well.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. To the deputy.
Thank you. I would just hope that, you know, that we're not informed and shared the information of them developing a policy. I like to think it more that we're developing the policy with them, and if it falls under the work of this committee, can I put forward for the next agenda item for the next meeting, that we actually get some clarification to ensure that we have a seat at the table for the actual policy building, not just for here, this is what we're doing, go get your council to approve it?
Yeah, and I think the CAO just indicated that, you know, they're making that commitment to reach out and have those discussions. So if you can bring that back, an update to the next council meeting, if you get that opportunity to have that discussion within the next month, that'd be perfect.
Mr. Chair, I think we know how we get into this position. We were told that we had to capitalize, you know, this property. But I know that we gave funding to the yacht club, which is great, but we have no capitalization in it, except I think we can now walk in front of the clubhouse and dive into the water. But I think that what we have here, there's a possibility of great relationship. Again, I think that anyone is applying to use this property, they go through the city first. That's where they go through. That's the first port of entry. It shouldn't be, okay, let's see where we can go with it. The deed, as you can see in the documentation, is a deed signed between the province of Prince Edward Island, or the Speaker of the House, and the city of Charlottetown. So it's our property, therefore we should be in control of the destiny of how we operate that piece of valuable property. And I think, Mr. Chair, just to support what the Deputy Mayor said, I think that we have to ensure that a political representation has to be from this committee, this standing committee, that sits down with the Speaker and whoever else they want to bring into the round table to discuss a path forward.
Oh, agreed. Okay, so we'll note that and we'll move forward. Yeah. So do we, yeah, that's right, I guess, sorry, we lost in the fact that we want to move this forward to council for approval? Is that what you're looking for?
Yeah, just to clarify, if I could, on two things. One, yes, we need a resolution because we're looking for the resolution to grant approval for Discover Charlottetown to use the site for Mistletoe Market this year. And secondly, to the mayor's point, you know, it's a great point. We would follow the same process that we always follow for requests to use public space. This would be no different. The only reason it's different in this case is because we're dealing with an intergovernmental issue, and we felt it best that we advise this committee and move it up in that direction.
Well, Mr. Chair, as the Deputy Mayor said, like, this has to go to a vote. And I find that it's unclear what we have here. Like, I know what I signed. Yeah, we signed a deal for a purchase of a property that extended, and it's on the map. I don't know if the map is here, of where we go. And that's why I mentioned today that the work that's going on there now at the north lawn of the Provincial Legislative Assembly is on Boulder Park. So I just want to make sure that we define the parameters of what we own and where we're going with it. And I think that it's an opportunity that we sit down and collaborate. That's what we want to do, is collaborate with our Speaker of the House.
So we know we're going to do that, or we desire to do that. The point of this is, do we need to move a resolution forward for council to
Moved.
vote on it? So moved and second? Do we have a second?
I'll second the resolution.
I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, we got to iron out the different processes that happen. But the mistletoe market, is something that is probably welcome and something that we want in the city, I assume. It has been there historically in the past. So would, I don't know,
So,
I'm,
there's no resolution part of the package, so the resolution,
or just a motion to move it forward so that a resolution can be created.
oh, so we're gonna create the resolution at council?
We never
Or
have a
is Tracy gonna
resolution,
put together,
but we never have a resolution here. We always just put a motion forward and a resolution gets
Go
created
ahead.
as a result of that.
Yeah, through the chair, that's correct. We have a staff recommendation at this time. A resolution would move forward to council if committee moves this forward.
Yes.
So the resolution is to go ahead with the Discover Charlottetown application. And the second part is we are going to sit down, okay, we're going to be part of a collaborative effort, cooperative effort to design the use or uses of this piece of property, correct?
But that will not be part of the resolution. But
Not a
that-
separate resolution.
That'll be.
Whole separate
that'll
issue.
be a-
Okay.
That'll be us taking as a committee, working with our CAO to engage with those other external stakeholders to be a part of that discussion
Well,
going forward on the table.
I think we want to be part of the discussion.
Well, we do. We've already
Yeah.
agreed to that. Everybody's agreed that we all want to be in that discussion. So that's on the CAO to take that forward and make that happen, I guess, would be what we'd be suggesting. But
So
the
if-
resolution, or the motion that we want to move forward here is just for the use of the mistletoe market, despite the way it came in and despite the way things are going. We'll correct that going into the future. As you indicated, we would want those requests for Boulder Park to come to the city of Charlottetown first. And we will collaborate with the other stakeholders to have a well-informed resolution coming out the other end that says, all three stakeholders are in agreement, or whatever the case may be, or something. Does that make sense? Answer your buzzer. Well, it doesn't matter if we vote, there's a motion on the floor to move that report forward to council.
Chair, for clarity, kind of what the staff recommendation reads. The committee recommends the council approve the mistletoe market booking request for the 2025 season. And staff recognizes, and I recognize that there's a broader issue here that we have to address.
That's what I summarized in what we're at here. We've had some great discussion about this. There's some work to be done outside of the resolution that we want to move forward. But nonetheless, we are seeking approval. They're seeking approval for that to be moved to council. It may open up further debate and discussion at council, and let that be. And obviously what the minutes of this meeting will be in the package, so people have an opportunity to see the discussion that we've had for rest of council, and we'll see where the
Well,
goes.
Mr. Chair, we're going to wait for your guidance to push this through at the next council meeting. I know you'll provide
Oh, yes.
a very simplified reason of why we want to make this happen. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you very
thank
much.
you. We'll move on to, do we have Melanie doing the procedural bylaw deferral report?
You have report number 5 first,
I think I've went through them all.
DEI task force work plan recommendations.
So we're on E, procedural bylaw deferral. Am I,
You still have report number 5, DEI task force work plan.
that's the next one after procedural deferral?
That's after the Boulder Park.
Not in mine, no.
I'm just going by my bookmarks.
Oh, yeah, I'm just going by the agenda. Okay, let's stick to the discussion item 6E, procedural bylaw deferral is the next one. Melanie, do you want to lead us through that discussion, please?
Chair, for clarification, procedural bylaw or DI task force?
I'm just going by the order of business, and 6E is where we're on next, which is procedural bylaw deferral.
Thank you, Chair. On behalf of administration, the report was written as required and requested at council that the deferral goes through this committee. And the update is provided there in the report, essentially saying that the discussion is being deferred to a special meeting of council.
Thank you, Melanie. Is there any questions on this? It's, I can start out by, indicating at our last meeting of council, we were in a first reading for the procedural bylaw. And during the question period of that, it was determined that there was still some desire to have some open discussion with council in a special meeting to kind of further discuss possibilities of committee of the whole was one of the major talking points that evening, but of course there could be other housekeeping amendments as well. So it was recommended to come back through this committee and to formalize that request. And that's what we're here to do today. So I guess putting that forward to your worship, as committee asking for a special meeting of council to have that discussion on the procedural bylaw amendments.
What about the changes that are part of the package right now? Creating the committee of the whole, changing education sessions to information sessions? Why do we deal with that?
I didn't think that we were doing anything today regarding the current changes that are in there, but if I misunderstood that.
Well, so, wait now, so we're gonna look at collapsing the standing committees, and then we're gonna also look at this, creating another committee called the Committee of the Whole.
So I think maybe we'll clarify in the way of, we're not looking to do anything. Melanie, did you want to?
Thank you, Chair, through to your worship. That's correct. We're not seeking to do anything here today. The discussion went through committee and on to council with those recommendations that are written in the report. The discussion at council segued into new recommendations. So the requirement was then to write the deferral so that conversation, not to have it today, but to move that over to a special meeting. And those changes were not what was originally proposed, which is why the special meeting of council was required.
Yeah. So there was no expectation to have a discussion here on any potential changes. We're having a discussion about it, and what comes out of that special meeting, there may be recommended changes back to committee here for future consideration by council and a vote, essentially.
What about, like, our staff worked on
Yeah.
revising this
Yeah. So we went
procedural bylaw to create
we went to a first
a
reading.
committee of the whole,
Yeah.
and to take education sessions and move it to information sessions. So we
So that
have
all
a.
still stands. That all still
Yeah,
stands.
well, let's pass this first.
No, we had a first reading.
Okay, well,
and
I
we
want to
defer-
recommend that this goes forward,
And we deferred the first reading
right?
because of the fact that
You're looking at other options.
other options,
Right.
other people. So we will have that discussion when it comes time to have the special meeting. So all of the editing that has occurred up to this point is not in question, I don't believe, with the exception of people wanting to have further discussion on committee of the whole.
Well, but, what, okay, but have you looked at the changes to the committee of the whole?
I contributed to them.
Yeah,
I contributed to
okay.
the changes and also
But-
looked at them, yeah.
Okay, so I see that we have a package ready to move on as part of the deferral. But I'll defer to the deputy mayor because I interrupted her opportunity to
To the
speak.
deputy?
Thanks. I just looking for a little clarity. So the staff put together a report for us at the last council meeting, which was based on our recommendations of things we wanted changed in our procedural bylaw. So are we not dealing with two separate things? Are we not still going to continue that trajectory with the first and second reading so that we can get that in place? The educational sessions moved on to information sessions and the other housekeeping changes in there? Or was this deferral that council suggested means that that's all on hold because we're going to have a council meeting to discuss other possible changes?
That's correct.
Oh.
So I will answer that. So it was believed or understood that if we were to approve that first reading, that it limited our ability to continue any further discussion on those changes. So a deferral was put forward to basically say, let's put a pause on this just for a second. there was a desire by a majority of council, I'll say, or some members of council, to have a special meeting to further discuss in an open public forum, which one of the highlights of that was committee of the whole. There could be other things. That was just essentially what the essence of the deferral was around. So yes, you're right. This is to put a pause on those changes for now, not to say they won't continue. And then we will have that meeting. And then if nothing else comes of that, we go back to the first reading, we complete the first reading, complete the second reading, and we're all done. If what comes out of that meeting is a consensus for further changes, we put those changes forward to Melanie or whoever needs to do those. It go back to first reading and it'll have even further changes into it. That was the spirit of what we were trying to do in that meeting.
So could I just?
So here we're today to seek just to move it to a special meeting of council.
Could I just quickly follow up, Chair? So okay, I understand what you're saying, and I know that one of the changes put forward was to add in committee of a whole. I didn't support the deferral at the time, so I struggle with supporting the continuing on of further discussion. However, I'll just wait and see what the rest of the
And that's
committee
fine.
wants
I
to
mean,
talk about.
ultimately, what I look at it here is, if it's not support, if the committee recommendation here is not to do, it still goes forward, and it's just your recommendation is that you didn't support it going forward. It's still going up to council regardless, so it's not gonna die on the floor here. It's gonna go back to council, and we're gonna have a discussion regardless. So it'll just show what the decision of this group was, to either support it or not support that further discussion.
But Mr. Chair, being a member of this standing committee and the discussion that took place back at our last council meeting, I wasn't aware that was a discussion that we had at this level. Did we have discussions that I missed about
We have
collapsing?
discussions on, sorry, what is it?
Collapsing the standing committees, going to one committee of the whole? Did we have those discussions?
It was very vocal here
What?
in the last.
No, but did we have them here? I don't see them in the minutes.
No, they're not here.
Well, where did they take place?
They're going to take place in this
No,
special.
but where did the discussion take place to get us to this point? It didn't happen at this standing committee because we are responsible for the procedural bylaw. That's one of our
So what
required
happened?
tasks. So where did if it didn't happen here at the committee level,
Yeah. So where
and then
did
it
this-
came up,
So let me ask you this, where did the discussion happen for all these other changes that were recommended here?
well, they were brought forward,
That were brought forward by councillors?
yes, because.
not in this
well, I
meeting.
believe our clerk for minutes and meetings sent out a request, and I think she received 2 responses.
Yeah.
So, again, I just find that the discussions that we had didn't encompass all these other discussions about collapsing committees and so forth.
But to
So
comment
can
on
you provide some background?
Background of that is there's,
There was some people that were talking about it?
there's discussion, no different than there's discussions on the changes that were in here.
Yeah.
So there's, just some collaboration around if there's any desire to have a look at other possibilities. And then during our meeting of council, Councillor McCabe stood up and brought that forward.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
I know we did discuss the committee of the whole. I know it did come to this committee, did it not? We did discuss it, correct?
this committee, I don't recall, it was maybe before my time, I don't have a conversation with committee of the
Yeah.
whole in this meeting.
So I don't think it's new that we weren't already looking at a committee of the whole, another committee. It will be another committee of the whole,
Yeah.
right? Which will look at, and there's prescribed or prescripted areas that we can talk about. But, so you want us to just greenlight this? Is that what, do we require a resolution to greenlight it or just to say, move on?
The CEO, we want to address that?
Thank you, Chair. Just to help, I guess, understand and provide some clarity, I think the issues of council of the whole and collapsing committees, there's 2 separate things. The collapsing of the committees was injected through the discussion at last council meeting. And because it went to first reading, putting it past first reading prevents any further discussion at second reading. There's not ability to discuss at second and third readings. So that's why it was asked to come back to committee to request a special meeting so there could be further discussion on the concept of collapsing committees.
Yep. So Deputy, did you want to?
I'll wait till you're done. You're the
No,
chair.
I guess I'm not sure,
Well,
it's pretty straightforward. There's a desire to have further conversation on this. We want to do that in a special meeting. I'm not sure, like, what we're, if here, you go to the meeting, you listen to the feedback, you provide feedback yourself, and the majority will decide if there's any desire to make any recommended changes. I don't think this committee has authority to decide what doesn't and doesn't go there. It's committee. What's that? No, that's what I mean. So we're just asking for, I think the request was for just a further discussion, a more broader discussion with all of council on the topic of committee of the whole. It may amount to nothing at the end of the day, and then we're done and we move on and we implement the further changes. It may result in something, we don't know yet. We haven't had the discussion in order to determine what we're trying to do. So we want to have the discussion to the deputy.
yeah. As the CAO said, it's two separate things. Committee of a whole was already put forward as something that we had looked at putting into our procedural bylaw. So I support that committee of a whole as another standing committee. I very much see that as an important entity for council hearing things in real time at the same time. There is a time and a place for committee of a whole. I did not support the deferral to have any further discussion on collapsing of committees with an 18 months left of this mandate. So I'll continue on that trajectory that I mean, it'll be council's decision. Will I attend the meetings if we have further discussions? Absolutely. But I'm not supporting it. But I certainly supported what was brought forward originally for the changes in the procedural bylaw. So that's where that's where I'm at with that.
So I think it's important to be clear that we only deferred the first reading of the procedural bylaw changes. Wasn't specifically in relation to any particular component of that, meaning collapsing of committees, although the context of why we want to continue, or why the desire to continue with this conversation, is to have a more broader discussion on things of committee of the whole, possibly not needing to have 10 committees, possibly not needing to have this, that, and the other thing. That's the discussion. And if it's a discussion, and ultimately, if that's what we are trying to get through, and what comes out the other end is undetermined at this point. I'm not sure we're supporting a deferral of any particular thing other than the first reading, because we want to have the further discussion. So we didn't defer, like, as a result of collapsing committees.
Yeah. Just, Mr. Chair, I know you're going to be pressed for time, but Mr. Chair, look, again, it's two issues. The reading that we were going through on the creation of the Committee of the Whole, if there was more discussion to be added at future meetings of strategic priorities and intergovernmental cooperation, then that could have been put on the table for discussion. And I'm sure there must be written reports, or there must be information that's available to look at this other idea. But again, I think we'll have a special meeting. We'll keep this on the docket as going forward. That is Committee of the Whole and the other changes that were stated in the background report. So,
Okay. So
Move on.
we just have a motion to move to council. Go ahead first, or?
go ahead. Move ahead to council. Okay.
Yeah, sure, we're moving ahead for a discussion, but I just want the minutes to reflect that I didn't support, I felt I had fully discussed what I needed to discuss to put my hand up on first reading. So clearly, we're going to have more discussion. That's great. But unless something drastic changes, my hand is still up for first reading on the work that's already been done by staff. So, if that makes any sense.
It does.
There. Thank you. Okay. Thank you very much, Melanie. Appreciate that. We'll move on. Just looking at time here. We do have the work plan recommendations, the DE task force. I believe you're going to speak to that as well.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to make this brief. I know we are running out of time, but I thank you for allowing us to bring this to you. The Diversity, Equality, and Inclusion Task Force for Charlottetown had specifically asked for your review and feedback, and as well, there's a few items that would need your approval. The enclosed work plan you'll see in your package, those recommendations were determined through research, the terms of reference, and significant work on behalf of each of the task force members. And through this plan, Charlottetown's task force seeks to reset its work and establish direction for 2025 to 2026. So here in this summary, there is our proposed focus, recommended action, and items that would require approval. I'll just briefly summarize the overarching goals, and then I'll move directly to the 4 items that would require your approval. Through the terms of reference and the work plan recommendations, it essentially falls under 3 items that we are required to do, and that is new initiatives and building a foundation for policy work. So within that, you see expanding our network, documenting our network, documenting organizations that support DEI groups, and then 2 items that will require approval. The second overarching goal is research for evidence-based and informed decision-making that was completed and then applied through a municipal lens, which allowed us to bring these recommendations forward, but additional work will need to be done in the future on more DEI groups. And the qualitative research, that one-on-one understanding of what communities need, that has been an existing best practice with the group, but if approved, we will build on that by getting one-pagers from those presenting and talking to us that we can then share to committee. The third overall goal is the DEI education and awareness, and that is a requirement on the terms of reference. And so within that, in addition to those one-pagers to build awareness that I mentioned, we would create lists of educational opportunities that we could bring to you, and that would go on to council, and there are members that would be pleased to support organizing training if it was requested. So I'll now turn to the work plan and just focus in on a few items that were requiring your, we were hopeful for your feedback and would require, if it meets your approval, would require approval for us to begin work. So under the work plan, you'll see those 3 overarching goals, and if you focus on that first, on the first page, item number 3 and number 4. So item 3 would be, we are hopeful you'll support us in organizing a professional networking event with cultural community leaders, staff, and council a few hours prior to council, similar to the newcomer networking events we've done in the past. This would just be a refreshed approach that would focus on priorities of what cultural communities need, and we would focus on building connections directly to cultural community leaders that are elected officials and leaders that can take information to their larger communities. So this would be to host that event alongside Charlotte and refresh it with priorities determined through research. And then the second item under this, if approved, the DEI committee is hoping to support the mayor's office with their rotating events. Flag raising is completely community-led, mayor-supported, and we're hopeful that our small group would be approved to participate in a rotating basis so that we can build those connections and relationships with DEI groups that are coming to the city.
So a question that I have is, you're obviously seeking approval of this committee to the mayor. Did this committee establish this working group, or is that something that is established out of the mayor's office? And I'm just I wasn't part of this committee at the time, so I'm not familiar with the background.
So the advisory committee or the task force, DEI, was a committee approved by council,
Okay,
right?
okay.
And then the terms of references. So you're modifying the terms of references.
Thank you, Chair, through to your worship. We're not modifying the terms of reference at this time, and we would like to bring additional information when there's more time regarding terms of reference and research. This is just the first step today. So council through mayor at the beginning of term would form their desired committees, advisory boards, and task force, and this was one of them.
So when you're asking for approval of certain areas here highlighted in yellow, it's one thing to seek approval from this thing, but there's also city support staff involved. So I guess you'd also be seeking approval for the CAO, is that correct? To support those initiatives?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, and cross-team initiatives. This event is already approved through the city. It's an event that is underway through Charlotte. So if we are approved to expand on that focus, it's city and staff, like you said. The bigger thing, though, is that we're looking to have this a few hours before council, to include council in this networking event. So that element of the event would require approval.
I mean, from what I read here, I would see no objection from a committee perspective, but I can't speak for procedure, before a council meeting, or whether city staff can participate in whatever that may be. So I'm only speaking for myself as the chair. I would not see any objection to the requests here for the ones that are highlighted in yellow. But again, that's just my opinion. Is there any councilor or deputy mayor, would you like to weigh in on that?
Sure. Just a couple of questions. More so, just from looking at this, it looks pretty straightforward. However, I just want to clarify that all of our community committees that are appointed through the mayor's office follow communications guidelines where, they don't speak on behalf of city or city staff or on council. I just want to make sure that anything that we're expanding still fulfills that important communication piece, that who speaks on behalf of this committee. It's usually an elected official or a communications person. I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything, and that the communication piece is still coming in that proper order that we outlined in our communication policy for these committees.
Thank you, Chair, through to the Deputy Mayor. Absolutely, that's an important point. That is reiterated in our public appointment policy, and it's in the terms of reference. And that clear communication requirement is what we are to adhere to. So, of course, any communication would be vetted.
CAO?
Thank you, Chair. And just a question and a comment, I guess, at the same time. So once this task force was formed in terms of reference, as we were just discussing at the table, it's largely an operational process here. But I think what this request before you, and I think why Melanie's bringing it, not just for information purpose, is it's because there may be an impact on council or an ask of the council prior to the meetings, and that's why it's kind of in this format. And largely operational, it is operational, the work of the task force, but because there will be time impacts to council, that's why they brought it forward.
And I recognize that. I guess I don't know who speaks for that, in the sense of, like I said, from a committee perspective, it doesn't seem to be unachievable what you're asking for here. I just can't speak for everybody. If you talk about the networking event prior to a council meeting, then sure, but I don't know how many councilors would be here from 4 to 5, and then our meeting would start at 5 o'clock type of thing, right? If that's what you were asking for. And then, of course, with the flag raising with the mayor, that would be on the mayor to determine if that's, something that, the rotating support for the community-led type of things, right? So I feel like there's others who need to have individual approvals here. Am I understanding that correctly? But in principle, it seems to be something that we could achieve. I mean,
Mr.
I'm leaning
Chair.
more to you, the.
Yeah,
your
so
worship,
Mr.
because I mean,
Chair,
as our-
in the past, we did have open houses, an open house for our new Canadians. Then we had an outreach to our new doctors, and I remember during COVID, I personally delivered packages to each of their homes because we couldn't assemble as a group. And then COVID sort of put that open house to the side, and I think the DEI committee is trying to bring it back so that the City Hall is an open, transparent building with lots of great things happening. And in the past, we've tried to do it, host these events prior to council, so we would get as much participation from members of council. I know you're great at getting out to a lot of activities, but this just allows councillors and staff to come a little earlier and to intermingle with our new Canadians. And it is a very, very positive experience. I know with our Asian visitors, they just can't believe that they can come into a city hall and go into a chamber, because back home, that is not possible.
So let's throw our support behind it and green light it, I guess, if that's what we're doing. Brad, did you want to add anything more?
The Chair, just exactly that. It's for information purposes, feedback, council awareness. If they choose to participate, that's great. And always at the choice of council, though.
Okay, Melanie, you have our support as a committee.
Thank you, Chair and Committee. The the DEI Task Force will appreciate the feedback. It was something they'd asked for, so I thank you for that. There's only one last item to draw your attention to, and with this committee being the sponsor of this task force, there are a number of items in the terms of reference that we're required to provide to council. So that would mean I would have to come to you with a list of DEI training recommendations, or a list of summaries of awareness and insights. So that isn't something we have done before. That's what's written in the terms of reference. So for awareness, to let you know that could come through you, and to make sure that there are no objections or concerns with that. And with that, that concludes the questions.
I think that's a good idea. In my short time in here, I haven't had a whole lot of involvement. I think it would be great to formalize this a little bit more. Like we see in some, I was in parks, and we have a number of committees there as well, and community seniors engagement committee, I think, is there. And you see the reports there and stuff. So I think we could formalize that and start adding that to this agenda as well, as just information at the very least, but anything you want to bring forward. So if you want to take the lead on putting that information together for this package, we would certainly welcome that. Okay, good, thank you. Thank you, Melanie. We're going to try to, we do have a large agenda here, so I want to see if, Rory, do you think we can summarize this quickly, or is this going to need some, or James, sorry, on the website modernization report?
In the interest of time, I'm happy to take questions rather than walk you through it. It's your preference.
Well, you can give us a quick overview of it, and then we can.
So you already know that our current website isn't an ideal situation. It's not very clean or intuitive. Behind the scenes, we also have some issues with customer support with the provider. Earlier this year, we were locked out for 4 days before we had some responses. So we were concerned about the provider really at this point. And because of staff turnover the last few years, we've lost some more knowledge, and there is no training support from the current provider. On the front end, it seems that we should be able to post information easily, but we are actually very limited in how we are able to do that. The template that we have right now is relying heavily on text. We're not able to use photos and graphics as efficiently as we could be. A missing piece is also analytics, which is really important to us to determine what pages are people visiting, what information they're looking for. So that will help us in planning continued information going out in communications. Over the years, again, because of turnover, we've had a lot of outdated content and broken links. And right now, even though our team handles most of the updates, other departments are also involved. Looking at options, we've looked at two. The first is to move our site to a new provider. That means most of the content would be duplicated, including things that aren't really working right now. This will allow better service because we'll have a different company, but it doesn't really solve our core issues in the long term. Issues like training and organizing the content will still be a problem. The cost for the first option would be about $50,000 to move over to a new provider. There's also an annual maintenance cost. It's currently at $9,000, but we estimate that going forward it would be about $20,000 with a new provider. And that does not include upfront costs for training. Second option is to completely redesign our website with a new provider, starting from scratch basically. With new design, would have easier navigation, better integration with tools like forms, payments, service requests where people can just type in what they want to have happen, any requests for information that would make it a lot easier for residents to interact with the city. The existing content will be overhauled and reorganized, and hopefully will be a better platform to really showcase what the city is doing, and we can do a better job at storytelling. The rationale for moving with a bigger redesign is that it would address many of the issues, outdated tech being one of them, poor user experience and content, and the lack of analytics, as I mentioned before. A better provider will also make managing the site much more efficient. We had a staff internal survey not too long ago, and less than half of staff were happy with our website and how they were working with it. So that's an important piece for our people who are working on that. And just over half of the respondents use the site almost daily to serve residents and to do work that they provide for the city. So with a new provider, there would be training involved, which is really beneficial, so we can really take advantage of what the website would do. Currently, we have very limited education and understanding of what the capability is. There are certain things that we are able to do very quickly and efficiently, but then there are other things that we don't know how to fix. For example, even just on the front page of our website, welcome, I think it says welcome to Charlottetown. That's not even in the right font, and we don't know how to change that because that font is embedded into this particular platform. Just to wrap up, the site will be, with a new provider, we'll be able to manage all of these issues. In terms of cost, we're looking at an investment of about $225,000. Most of it will be to provide the new site and manage the transition. This includes working with them to plan properly, looking what our needs are from residents, and what information they're looking from us, what our priorities are in terms of storytelling, about how we can inform citizens of what we're doing as a city. We also need to have help to create and rewrite new content. We don't have the capacity right now on our team to do this. And after this initial investment, the annual operating cost would be around $20,000, as I mentioned before. So that's an overview of the situation right now with our website, if you have any questions.
Thank you, James. I'll hand it over to the deputy if she has a question.
I don't have a question, I just have a comment. I've been shouting from the rooftop for this since I was elected 7 years ago. So you have 100% my support on this every step of the way. Kudos for you for bringing it forward.
So, James, thank you for the report and the analysis on, potential options here. I know, gone through this myself, and extensively. I know there's a lot of work that goes into, migrating from an older legacy site to a new platform that, may give you the things that you need. I just want to point out there, I think that before doing that, not solely focusing on the platform first, but more importantly, focusing on a number of things, clearly, the needs of residents, and the public and the information that they need and how easy they can find that. So having a well-defined information architecture is going to be key on how you navigate throughout the website. It's not necessarily, do I have to know how the city of Charlottetown is structured from a department perspective? I just want to find permits. I don't need to know the permits belong under planning and heritage and whatever. I just need to find permits. So the information architecture will be essentially as equally important, if not the most important aspect of redeveloping your website. Accessibility, mobility, the standards, meeting today's standards around there for, obviously, for the purpose of mobile devices and people with visual impairments and et cetera. And so those are obviously very important as well. And the content, I think you talked about there's over 200 pages of content. Well, I mean, there might be only 50 pages of content that's adding any value to the website. So, we might get down to 50 or 10 pages, it doesn't matter. So the pages of content that are there have to add value, and they have to be written in such a way that, it's plain language that people can understand. And I'm sure I'm not telling you anything you don't know. I'm just pointing out here that I'm very supportive of this initiative. I would love to see this come to fruition under my chairship of this committee. And because I too get frustrated with the website, using it and trying to find, especially from the document repository perspective. So with the council documents and that are on there. So no slight to anybody who's put that together. It's just, it's hard to navigate, and it's probably run its course, and it's time for an upgrade to the website. So happy to see this here. Of course, here from an information perspective, I could see this as being something that be added to capital next year possibly. But that doesn't mean, some pre-planned, no? You don't want to?
We can start this as soon as possible. I don't think it's a capitalized initiative. I think it could be operational, but I think it has to start right away. Is it, maybe Rory knows, or you might know, James, are we still with Civic Work? Civic Work?
Yes.
What is it? Civic Live. How long have we moved to Civic Live? 20 years?
Before my time.
Yeah, so it's been a long time, right? And internet sites, .ca, .com, .org, .net, they're not the sites they were previous to all the social media platforms. People just go there to pick up a little bit of information. Where they're getting their information, James, is from Facebook, X, and Instagram. And there's where we need to boost what we do online, because anytime I post something, I try to post it on Facebook, X, Instagram. And it's seamless. It's the same message. And there's lots of followers on all those platforms with the city of Charlottetown. So a lot of focus on that. Look, I wrote this down to get it on the agenda. I saw the agenda. I did put down civic platform. That's what I refer to it as. Charlottetown website. It has to be cleaned up. It is really difficult to do anything on that site. And you wouldn't want to have Windows 3.5 because you'd never be able to load it. So I think this is, look, we have to start it right away. Let's not wait till next year. He's asking for $255,000. I think the initial cost would be bringing in a consultant, correct?
Correct, yes.
James, is that correct? I'd say let's start that. I don't know if that would be 150, but you would have to go out to tender on that, correct? And you could probably get a local company to do it also. But if I could say one thing, and this is no one at fault, when inadvertently something came out of our meeting and went up onto X, and then we had to get it down, I remember getting a call from Irvin Oil and saying, get that down. It was on our website regarding the Houston Street Irving Stakes. I finally had to phone Sean Kane down at the Department of Education because he was dealing with the same web platform host for us, and he gave me a direct number. Without that direct number, we could have been waiting another few months to get that down. So we have to find a provider, a host that can respond quickly to any changes that we have to make. And that's definitely, I want to make sure that we don't need as the chair said, we don't need elaborate internet presence. We just need something that people can go in, make sure they see our pictures, our photos, our images, and a little bit of information. Thank you.
Okay, to the CEO, and we'll, sorry, James, I'll give.
Yes, Chair, and just, I think it was brought forth for information purposes, but if it is the will of the committee to try to make this happen this year, there will be a need for a resolution to ask for more money. I don't think there was no monies allocated in this year's budget.
That's why I suggested capital, but the mayor says we have that money somewhere, we're gonna get that going.
No, wait, no.
somewhere.
Is it a capital initiative or an operational? Let's clarify that first.
It's definitely not capital money, it would be operational money.
I'm asking James, Communications Department, bring something together for the next meeting so that we can vote on it and start moving. That's what I'm asking. Now, where we have to find the money, that's his job.
Okay.
That's CAO.
There you go, perfect. Okay, we're gonna wrap up. James, thank you, you're all good? Are you gonna?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any new business?
Motion to adjourn?
No new business, thank you. A motion to adjourn. That's it. Thank you very much. Have a good evening, everyone.